renaissance now complete. All that's left to do is crown themselves as SWAC champions. But on that road, Grambling had to make a pit stop in New Orleans to claim the 42nd Bayou Classic. Along with my broadcast partner, Ron Mitchell, I'm Mark Gray. 34-23 to count. Grambling State knocks off the Southern University Jaguars in a game that was really more about what this game meant as opposed to the overall outcome, because 3 years ago we thought Grambling's program was dead. This was a resounding statement that they're back today.
Hey, the resurgence of their program is monumental, because when we thought they were kind of buried with a lot of dust on them, they've come back and they built that institution, that program, back to where it is among the elite programs in the HBCU family. And to come in and win this game today against Southern, who squeaked one away from them last year, this was big, because Southern, Grambling was playing with house money today, but they still wanted to prove a point, because you have 365 days to be the winner of the state.
And it's interesting to note that when you start talking about playing with house money, that quarterback, Jonathan Williams, certainly was the guy that was dealing the deck. I mean, we talking about a young fellow who had to deal with the loss for the last 364 days. 20 of 34, 272 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But it was the calmness and the way that he directed the Grambling offense, which was masterful to watch.
I mean, to put on top of that, he had 78 yards rushing, plus a touchdown. So altogether, you're talking 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, which why he earned the MVP rights.
And this was a great offensive performance. They were able to run the ball effectively. You got to give credit where credit is due to Justin Kelly with 94 yards on the ground. Williams himself, you mentioned his 78 yards on the ground. So when Grambling is playing as a team, they're certainly not a team of individuals. They're definitely the sum of their parts. And you can't say enough also defensively about the game that Arcaz Carter had. Just a man amongst boys defensively throughout the day.
Hey, Mr. Carter had to stop a very potent Southern team. They have Austin Howard. I said it in time again, as a sophomore, he plays very poised within himself, and it's a test to that coaching staff to bring him along as he progresses. I mean, offensively, then they have a backup, they have a running back, a star in Tillery, and Willie Quinn. Those guys are very effective. One of their stars in the SWAC. But today, Cook in that Grambling defense stayed on top of them.
They certainly did. And the thing that was really interesting to watch about this game was that Grambling sort of took a page out of what Alcorn State did in last year's SWAC championship game. We're not going to let the special teams beat us. We're not going to give Southern the big play. You're going to have to matriculate the ball down the field. Southern couldn't do that, particularly after the adjustments were made in the first quarter. And really, I think if you're Southern, you almost have to start going back to the drawing board just a little bit and look at some things that you're doing offensively right now, because you're not going to get big plays in every game. You're going to have to grind out some W's.
Well, they have a one-dimensional running game with Tillery. Tillery was taken out of the game before halftime. At halftime, he had less than 10 yards rushing. So if you take him away, and he's a very big part of this offense. Then when you look at Quinn, he was quiet. They pooch kicked everything, and they eliminated the all special team play. So when you look at Grambling sticking to that scheme, and they played a defensive zone early in the contest, then when they made the adjustments that we're going to go man, that put the pressure on Austin Howard to complete these passes without just lobbing them in the open spots. They took away all those dead, voided areas, and that was the turnaround in the game.
So Grambling goes on to play for the SWAC championship, but you look at Southern, 6-5 overall, 6-3 in the SWAC. In many places, not a bad season. At Southern, unacceptable. So they're going to definitely, at Southern, it's one of those places where it's what have you done for me lately? And you're going to have some people down there who are scratching their heads a little bit about a team that had so much talent. Many people thought that this was the team to beat coming in, but they go home prematurely by their standards.
Yeah, you're good as your last hit. And I mean, Austin Howard, we saw them. They were great last year. Now, by all means, we love Southern. We go there, they're welcoming. All of the people, they show us a great time. But when it turns into these big games, they were minimized and they were exposed in a lot of areas. And Grambling just put that running game into full gear, and that was the difference in this game.
So Grambling takes on Alcorn State, what should be a matchup between two great quarterbacks. You look at John Gibbs coming into the SWAC championship game, and you figure, does he have an edge because he's been to that mountaintop already?
He's been there, and he can also help his players adjust, keeping them under the wraps and letting them emotionally unleash all of that potential into the game and not celebrate too much during the week.
You got the perfect storm, two teams, and they played earlier this season. It was a one-point contest that was won by Grambling. Does Grambling have an edge because they win?
They definitely have an edge. You know, the kids feel confident, but this is what coaching is all about. You go in and you look at your corrections, see where you can improve, and also for Alcorn, they can look and say, hey, we let that get away from us. Now this is time for us to avenge, and it'll be even sweeter because you can win the SWAC title.
And we've been coming down here for the last, 7, 8 years. It's great to see that the Bayou Classic is back. There were a lot of people when Grambling was going through their problems, and you had a half-full stadium that were wondering whether or not this game would survive. It's clearly the granddaddy of all HBCU classics. It's as close to a bowl game as you will get in FCS football, and it's great to see 10 years after Hurricane Katrina that the city of New Orleans is back, but so too is the Bayou Classic, because there is no event in American sport quite like this.
Oh, there's a lot of excitement. When you go around and you walk around this town, you see the shirts, you see the paraphernalia, and all morning long we would on the elevators with people. You coming over to the stadium. They had a tremendous crowd outside for the pregame concert. So it is back. Katrina was a devastating thing that happened to this city, but this is all about rebuilding.
Great to see that the Bayou Classic is back. It truly is a great piece of African Americana. And just think about it, man. You leave here, Grambling gets to take the momentum from Louisiana to Houston for the SWAC championship game. Alcorn gets to bring the mojo from Mississippi. It should be a heck of an event in Houston next weekend.
Hey, it'll be definitely a nice contest, and this is what HBCU football is about. You have two outstanding quarterbacks. Those guys, we're going to see them down the line in the future.
So that's the story from here in New Orleans, Louisiana, where Grambling State continues its march back up the ladder of successful programs by claiming the 42nd edition of the Bayou Classic to the tune of 34-23. For Ron Mitchell, I'm Mark Gray, reminding you, as always, if you haven't done so already, download the HSRN mobile app. And for all your news and notes from around the world of HBCU sports, log on to hsrn.com.